Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas with John Palmer and Lauren Goodlett. They are both from Emerge Counseling Services. John, that was just a wonderful story that we ended on. Would you suggest that's something that parents could even do, give their children some toys at home and have them explain to them that way what's happening to them at school? Or should this be done by someone who's licensed and knows what they're doing?
So I'll ask the professional.
There again, I kind of think it depends. I think I would recommend bringing them in for some kind of counseling, just because most of the counselors that we do the sand tray therapy, expressive arts, music therapy, there's so many different kinds, have those specialty trainings and know what to look for, and also know how to remain calm through those situations, because a lot of the times parents, there's that emotional involvement. So
Yes.
if you find out that's going on, you might freak out or get upset. And
that could be terrifying.
And it could be really detrimental for you and for the child.
And I'm sure that wouldn't help the child seeing mom,
really upset.
Yeah,
kind of
sometimes
really
we talk
upset.
about how that our emotions can hijack our brain.
Absolutely. Our emotions can definitely hijack our brains. And that's why so many people come in for counseling, because it's like, logically, I know this, and logically, parents know so many amazing things, but that emotion part can really just hijack your brain.
Any tips on what a parent should say if they start to see this change in personality and it seems to be beyond teenage angst, that something, grades are slipping and it's just not the same kid? How do you say that to your kid? You seem to be going through something. I'd like to talk about it. That probably is not going to be okay, let's talk.
Right.
Probably there's going to be a little bit of a sales job to open up to the parent, and then certainly to be, you don't want to make them feel like I'm really, really, really worried about you when you take them to a counseling center, but you are really, really worried about them. How do you make that conversation happen?
I think just starting off with sharing with them how much you do love them, and that as their parent, one of the reasons that God gave us all parents is because at that age we don't necessarily know what we're doing or where we need to go with things. So just kind of pointing that out to them and saying that as their parent, you're really concerned. You just kind of see them withdrawing, and if they want to talk about anything, that you're there. And then just kind of depending on safety level, if you feel like suicide is an option, then pushing it a little bit more into counseling or hospitalization or whatever that step would need to be. But
I've heard that children who are in a family where, or anyone who knows someone or has been close to someone who did take their own life, that they are more likely, that seems to be an option on the table then. Is that something that we could see go through families or close friendships?
yeah, I think that in some cases people see that as an option, but depending upon how it's followed up and talked about, some people that actually deters, because they then see the way that the community and the system around them grieves. And most of the time, someone who's contemplating suicide, if they are thinking about the people around them, sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, they don't want to hurt people. That's not their goal at all, because they're typically so hurt. They don't want to hurt other people.
And they're thinking, I'm making their lives better. Somehow in their messed up way of thinking, they're thinking they will be so much better without me. I'm going to put them out of their misery and take me out of the equation. I just don't understand how a person gets to that point, but we're talking about a mental illness, and people have gotten to that point.
I just read this morning that the quarterback for the Washington State University Cougars took his life last night, left a suicide note. He would have been a senior. He was slated to be the starting quarterback next year, age 21. We don't know, of course, what was in that suicide note and what caused it. But my thinking, here's a young man that's obviously very popular. He's very skilled. He's very talented. He's got the world ahead of him if you get to that level of football. And yet something was going on inside, and he didn't feel safe to talk with somebody, or maybe he did, and for whatever reason he still continued on. But I think one of the things that I want to really encourage all of us is that every day to be aware of the people around us. whether our child or our parents or a friend, just to be aware that people are hurting deeply, and the words we use could be a trigger for them to do something that they really didn't intend to do. Maybe not even going to the point of suicide, but doing something else. And not that we're responsible for other people's actions at the end of the day, but I think our attitudes and our heart, even a smile, can sometimes just be what it would take for some people just to take a second thought, to know that, I really am loved. Somebody cares about me. And I just want to encourage us. We're living in a world that is so uncivil, and I'm really sorry to say it, but even with our president and the words that are spoken and the anger that's spewed out and the names that we call people, and it's almost like if we have these 140 characters and we can just say it, because we're not saying it face to face, we can just say what we want to say, and those could be so hurtful. And I just want to encourage us, especially those of us who are Christ followers, to really be careful. The words we speak, the attitudes we portray, that we demonstrate the grace and love of Christ in all of our relationships, even in a situation where maybe there's some conflict, that we handle in a way, speaking the truth, but doing so in love, in a way that helps people to move toward healing rather than the other way.
There could be someone listening right now feeling, I'm pretty close to the end of my rope. How do you find out, what do you say to yourself as far as, I need to get help? What would be something that a person who is going through this kind of internal hurt and turmoil, what should their steps be?
I think for them, I would just want to say to them that there's so many people, so many of us that have been there, have been really close to that point, and just, I know everybody's probably saying it to you, but it really is going to get better. And there's, we have national suicide hotlines. Depending upon the county, there's different hotlines. But say something to a parent, to a trusted adult, not just necessarily to a friend, because the friend may not know what to do. But say something to a trusted adult and ask, what steps can I take? What do I need to do? And get into counseling or some kind of crisis center as soon as you can.
There obviously also is tremendous guilt on the people of those who have been close to someone who has taken that step. You relive every conversation. What could I or should I have done differently? What would you say to the survivors experiencing guilt?
Wow, that's a really hard question. I dealt with that early on as a pastor. When a young lady reached out to me, a teenager, I was pastoring a very small church, a church plant, and she had called me she would call lots and lots and lots of times, and this was probably the fourth or fifth time that she had called that day, and I was kind to her. It was late at night, and I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to hurt her, but I prayed with her. But I didn't go see her. I didn't leave the house. I didn't invite her to come over and see my wife and me. And that night she took her life. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time for me to come to the point where I realized that even though I was very sad and I was very hurt for her, that I wasn't responsible for that. But that's
right.
That really, really messed with my mind for a long time. And I'm sure it must be even worse for a parent or a sibling of someone who dies by suicide, who takes their life.
One of the comments that one of the moms of Perry students said, there were no signs. Yeah. So he must have been talking to someone, but he wasn't talking to a family member. And I think that's it. If we can be, as you say, so hyper aware, but sometimes there will not be a sign. Some people are very good at hiding it. And as you say, as difficult as it is, you didn't cause this. Yeah. This was something that they did. And think of it as any other disease. Think of it as a cancer or any other disease that took their life. This disease is what took their life. To end on a happier note, you said you have another story, a real good turnaround.
I just want to remind all of us that Jesus Christ loves each of us and can really make things better. Just about 6 months ago, a young boy came to us, 13 years of age. His dad brought him because he had planned his own demise, how he was going to take his life. And when he came into our center, Mark, one of our counselors, took him to the sand therapy tray and had him do what the other boy did several years ago. And when he made his world, he had himself in the middle, and he built a wall around himself. And then on the other side of the tray was a rock. And Mark said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, this is God, and I don't know how to get to God."
Wow.
And so he said, "I don't think life is worth living." So Mark said, "Well, would you like to meet God? Would you like to have a relationship?" He said, "Yes." So Mark gave him the opportunity to receive Christ. He prayed to receive the Lord. And then Mark said, "Why don't you make your world for me? How are you feeling now?" And he opened the fence, and he took the little boy and he walked him across the sand next to God. And Mark's been able to follow up, and there's still some issues that had to be worked through in his life. But he had opened his heart to the life giver, and Jesus had given him hope. And I just want to say, if there's any way that Emerge or any of our counseling services in the area can be of service to you, please call, because we really do care.
What is that number? Emerge, how do we call you?
330-867-5603.
And do you have a website?
We do, emerge.org, and you can actually go online and fill out an intake form there.
Awesome. John Palmer, Lauren Goodlett, Emerge Counseling Services, thanks for all you do in our community.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.